I have the fantastic honor for our debut contest at Spoken to announce our winner amongst our finalists. But I'm pleased to share that Philip Keys with The Accidental Teacher is our grand prize winner. So, Philip,
Wow.
congratulations.
Wow. That's pretty phenomenal.
And we are here with Philip Keys, the grand prize winner of the Your Story contest. And we couldn't be more honored to share some time with you, Phil, than to chat a little bit about your journey with Spoken and the Your Story contest.
Thank you, Stacey. It's really a privilege to be a part of this journey and to do that very much in your space here today. And so it's really an honor and a privilege. Um, I just want to just start off just sharing a little bit here is that it was so exciting that I was able to be a part of the finalists. And then to find out that I won was just mind-boggling, out of this world into space. Um, the interesting thing was that as I was writing my story, I was often thinking, how would I launch my book? How would I communicate to my friends, family, and others around me? Because you only have so much connection. And this opportunity, this platform, Spoken, has basically launched my book. It has been phenomenal. And I've had lots of friends and family and others just reach out to me. And it's just been so inspiring. And it's just motivated me and put me up to another level of being so industrialist, being so passionate about continuing my story and continuing my writing.
Mm, that is so great to hear. Tell us a little bit about your journey with Spoken in regard to how you came to know us and your experience narrating your project.
Okay, how I came to know Spoken, it just fell across my computer, so to speak, through my emails, and I got it from Author Nation. Author Nation, Joe was saying in his thing, "You have 10 days. Hurry up, get it in for contest Spoken." I'm going, huh? What? And that was a surprise. And I went, well, this is not a bad idea. And because earlier a few 6 months earlier, I met a playwright. He was in the library where I was at Victoria State Library, and he gave me a very good piece of advice. He said, "Phil, enter as many competitions as you can." Short stories, whatever, it will build your craft, it will build your experience and build your knowledge. Just have a go. Don't worry if you win or lose, just keep going at it. So, anyway, I had been doing a couple, and this one came across my computer, and I went, "Oh, audiobook. Now this is different. I never thought about this, and maybe I'll do it later." But anyway, I said, "I'll do it." And so I got to it, and I had already drafted my book, and it was about to go to my editor, and I thought, I'll just take the first two chapters. It meets the minimum criteria because now I had 24 hours to submit. And literally, I went furiously choosing actors, voices, and so on. And that's why that wasn't my voice you heard in the second part, because I had to get that organized so quickly. But it was a good experience. I learned so much from it. And that's how I came across Spoken. And it's doing the job perfectly for me.
That's awesome. So just a little bit of background about the competition. Um, for those who may be watching, it is a competition called Your Story. And the tagline for this competition was "The heart behind the work matters just as much as the story itself." And
Yes.
so that was a big part of the contest, was to have authors bring their stories to life in audio, but then also to bring their own personal story to life in audio as well to support that. So I was just curious, was that a very important part of your process, and also what attracted you even more to the competition was the fact that you could bring your personal story to it?
Well, absolutely, because my story is a memoir. And so it just fitted so nicely it was, as I've always said, it's a slice of my apple pie. That's what a memoir is. And it's just and that's what drew me in so well, because you wanted to know my backstory behind the story. And I thought, well, I can speak well enough and I can communicate my thoughts and ideas here. And so I saw a real opportunity to communicate the story from a personal and a different level. So basically, it provided a multiple layer of communication, the story itself, to engage the person, to bring the reader on board, to just immerse themselves and on the journey, and then just to lift that one part more, so that, oh, that's why the story was written. That's how the story was written. That's who Philip is. And it just made that so beautifully done. I enjoyed that. In fact, when I listened to my fellow writers, I went into their backstory well. I really dug into their backstory. I went, oh, okay, I like what she said. I liked how he said that. I was engaged because I like that type of writing naturally, and I was engaged in how they communicated their ideas and their experiences, whether they were a mystery murder writer or they were a science fiction writer. I was just still fascinated by the way they communicated their backstory, and so it was a very much a part of the equation. It really, I thought this really resonates with me, and I thought I'm going to grab this. And I knew that, time was the essence. I had to fashion it. Interesting story. What part there was, as I said, I was in a hurry to get this done, and so you had a choice of narration yourself or choosing an actor's voice. Well, I tried narrating it myself at an ungodly hour, I think it was, and I had all the echoes going on, all the reverberation. As you can see behind me, I've got all curtains up now. Fix the problem. And and it sounded so bad, so terrible. And I have been doing podcasting before, and I've been doing that in a recording studio, and I realized how important that aspect was. And so I frantically ditched that, and then I went back to find my narrator voice and pulled that one in, and I said, oh, that works pretty good, that'll have to do. So yeah, it's dynamic, and it really just gives that multi-layer, which I think is really important. Yeah. And if
We
it's my
often
analogy, if it's my analogy of a slice
Mhm.
of the apple pie, perhaps it is the
Mm.
crust of that pie.
Oh, I love that. I love your analogy with the apple pie, Phil. As we continue to build and evolve spoken, we are always going to keep the human element at the center of everything we do. And this contest and your piece specifically really highlighted that we can use the technology, cutting edge AI technology, to celebrate the shared human experience. And I believe that at the winter webinar the other night, when we were all together and everyone was sharing, I felt like a synergy among the group, and everyone
Yeah,
was cheering each other on. You guys knew each other a little deeper because of those personal stories. And I
absolutely.
think there's a way to use audio to continue that, to use spoken and use this technology to elevate the human experience and to share that with your readers. And I'm wondering if you have any plans on or new ideas for reaching readers through audio, because of your experience with spoken or this contest and specifically in general, your anything that comes to mind for you.
Well, that's really good question, Stacey, because that really um, focused or made me focus on where I wanted to go next with the way I write my stories and how I communicate who I am, because I'm a person who enables people to communicate and to be heard, and so and enable them to understand. So I said, my stories, unlike others, and unlike my fellow writers, we're different. We have different focuses, what we are and who we are. And so what I really began to see is that I wanted to shape my stories not for long durations, but really a 15, 20-minute slice that would really engage the individual. And I thought to myself, and then when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking always the listener. Who's listening to this? Who is my reader? And I'm thinking about their situation, where they're at, what they're doing for the day, taking the kids to school, going to work. Everyone's busy doing their stuff. So I thought, if I can just take a part of their time, just 15 minutes, I would have really engaged with them. And so I learned this when I was teaching online education in the university and delivering online courses to our university students. And I learned very early not to make my lectures very long. Lectures usually go for 45 minutes and everybody goes to sleep. So I said, no, 15 minutes. And sure enough, I had feedback from my university students telling me, Phil, I can listen to this when I'm going on the train, when I'm on the bus, when I'm in the shower, everything. Phil, this is so easy, I can capture it, And I knew then that was what I needed to do here. So where I want to go is to craft stories that not are really within that time frame. That won't suit everyone's way of doing things, but it will suit for me. And then make it interactive so that the listener can reflect on it and say, I'm going to send Phil a question and communicate with me. Ask me a question about the story, or what do you think, Phil, about this? I read your story and you said how this worked and how that didn't work, And so immediately I want the story to be engaging to a point where they can quickly text me and say, Phil, I didn't like what you said, or something like that. I don't mind. I'm so glad, it's good to get negative feedback. What tells you is that somebody actually listened to your story, which is plus. It's a total plus. So that's where I'm thinking. I want it to be like that. And I love to have that interactive nature where listeners are reflecting, engaging, interacting with me. That's what I'm thinking on this plane. I don't know how that will work, Josh. Probably we will have lots of discussions how we can craft that. But anyway, that's the big picture idea, big skeleton of the idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea. My background's multimedia, so when I hear your approach and that multi-layered approach, and also the fact that it makes your writing present, it's alive, right? It's reflecting what people are giving you, and then you can change it as you put new work out. I think that's really special, and that's something that Stacy and Phil from Spoken we talk about all the time, is that it makes your workflow change, where you can change your audio, you can change your story. The work is never really done.
Yeah, exactly.
I think your work will be very poised for a very successful anthology that you might want to, craft a series. As a memoirist, you are sharing slices of your life. And I think that people could enjoy that in groupings. Like a whole pie with different servings, if we want to continue the analogy, or little pieces, like you said, and taking those shorter clips and using those for growing your platform, your email list, or there's so many different creative ways to use Spoken, and I love the audio and getting to know you through the voice of your work. I think really resonates. And I think that's why your piece was so popular. You had some stiff competition there. There's quite a few. You were among 12 finalists, and then we had a list of 20 honorable mentions. And there was some really quality work out there. And I think that the ability to communicate with an audience through voice, whether it's an AI voice and the eloquent writing combined with the eloquent performance, really hits home, and your piece definitely did that. I'm excited to hear more of your work brought to life through Spoken.
I got feedback from people about the narration, and it's quite comical. They just sort of said, Phil, that doesn't sound like your wife. Doesn't sound like Bernice's voice. But what was funny, but what it did, the narration does, it makes you hear your story differently because when you read a story, you know, you hear your own voice. And unfortunately, you missed out the errors because your brain is just switching on. And as soon as you hear it in a different voice, you hear it and in a different way. And that forces you to start thinking about tone, pace, rhythm, how it actually sounds. And it reminded me when I was working with an audio engineer doing podcasts, and we were trying to choose some background music for my podcast. And he said, "Oh, choose something you like." And I said, "Well, you know," and I did. And he said, "Well, I've," and he based it on one thing. He said, "I based it on your own rhythm of your own voice and your own pace." So he chose music that fitted with the way, my rhythm and pace of how I spoke. And that really elevated my podcast and changed it. And so I think that's what narration, the AI narration, does in a way. It helps you hear your own tone, your pace, your rhythm, all those things that you get feedback from your editor or when you're going through creating your story. You hear it and it works really well, and it really helps you construct that story in that framework. And the other thing I wanted to say is that um, when you're doing a story, it's a one-on-one communication. And I also learned this when I learned this early on when I was doing radio broadcasting. And one thing they said to me, "Phil, this is not like an auditorium where you're teaching students and so forth. Talk to them as if you're talking one-on-one when you're on the radio." And it changed everything. It changed my tone, it changed my language, it changed my connection, and it made it so different because as a, you know, you're not standing and at the lecturing, but you're talking to the individual, and it changes everything. And so those are a couple of things I learned on my own teaching journey. Little things I learned from friends and colleagues, little point, just nuggets of experience that really I think always keeps in my mind when I'm communicating online like this. I want to talk to you, and that's it. That's my focus. That's all.
I love that. And I mean, imagine that is reflective in how the reader interprets your work. They feel like you are speaking to them personally. And I felt that in your piece too. So thank you for sharing that. That's great. How can people find more of your work?
Yes, philkeys.blog.
Okay.
That's my blog site, philkeys.blog. It's WordPress, and which is going a little bit sleepy. I'll have to wake it up and get it going. So I apologize if it's not up to date, but it is there, and it does talk about what I am and who I am, my journey, and that. And I'm also on Spotify. I've written, as a Christian, I've written some things in that field. I've written a series called The Mysteries of Christ, which examines our connection with Christ and the Gospels and the stories there. So I've done that. So that's on Spotify. Yeah, that's at the moment, that's where I'm at, what I'm doing. I'm in the stage of developing another series podcast about Your Story Matters, which fits in line with memoir writing and talking to people about how important their story is. And that's what I'll be hoping to do, is to talking to individuals who about their story, how important it is for others to hear their story, and to go on the journey. So that's what I'm doing, and what I'm at.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Philip. Thank you. And that sounds to me like something that in the future, if Spoken ever brings back the Your Story contest, would be a really good offering, is the premier winner of Your Story offering just that very thing, Your Story Matters. So it's funny how those things all come full circle. And everyone watching can go and listen to Philip Key's story, Accidental Teacher, on our YouTube channel. It's streaming there right now. And that's the full story plus his personal story.
And we look forward to more to come. Thank you so much, Philip.
Thank you.
Write it, hear it. Any story, any size. Professional audiobooks in a click. Spoken.